We are glad to see all of our attendees here today, and welcome to Brown University. And I want people to know that we are thrilled to have you here. This event is called, A Day in the Life of a Brown Student Athlete. And we have with us today, and I just got a message from Meadow Carmen, who's one of our student athletes. How do I know how to get my video to pop on? I'm not totally sure, Meadow, but I think if you, maybe could message either Sol Jane Martinez, who's in the chat, or Hypo, who's also on the chat, or Karen Habistro, they might be able to help you find that out. But we are welcoming Meadow Carmen, who is a student athlete in women's ice hockey, and we're welcoming Perry Shinen, who's in women's tennis. Hey, there's Meadow. Great to see you. Good morning. David Mitchell, who's in men's basketball. Tamanang Cho, who's in men's basketball. Emma Chow, who's in women's volleyball. And Luca Gatos, who's in lacrosse, if I'm not mistaken. We are also very, very grateful to our co-organizers, Karen Habistro, who not only teaches in the engineering school here at Brown, but also is a former swimming athlete when an undergrad at Brown, which is very exciting. And couldn't do this at all without Perry Shinen, who through the sort of advisory council of student athletes at Brown was kind enough to basically corral everybody to come join us today. So we're incredibly sorry and sad that there's not a sports season for our Brown student athletes this year, but it does give us a chance to have some extra time to talk to people who might otherwise be in practice. And we're incredibly grateful for all of you, or in games, for coming to see us today. So here's what we're going to do today as kind of an overview. The first half of today, we're going to go till 10:45, but the first half of today is going to be basically Q&A run by Karen and myself about sort of a day in the life of Brown student athletes. And then the second half is going to be an open Q&A to attendees. Although I should mention, if we end up having fewer Q&A questions, we're happy to ask other things, because Karen and I are both on the faculty coaches group at Brown, which tries to see analogies between coaching and teaching, and we're very curious, about sort of student athlete experience, and we want to show what a day in the life of a college student and a college athlete would be. So I'm going to start us off with the first question, and I'll sort of call on the first three participants to do part one of this question, and then I'll call on the other remaining sort of participants for part two of the question. So the first three participants, I'm wondering, is could you describe the average day in the life as a student athlete in your sport on a game day, particularly during your season? So maybe I'll call on Emma Chow first, not to put you on the spot, but I wondered, what's the average day in the life like for women's volleyball?
Yeah, so hi everyone. My name is Emma Chow. I'm a senior on the women's volleyball team. And during season on game day, so we only play games on Friday, Saturday, which is really nice. It doesn't really conflict with academic life here at Brown. So if we are like having a game day on Friday, maybe we'll have a morning class, but pretty much right after class, you'll head on over to the gym, start kind of your pregame warm up. We like hang out in the locker room. Everyone's kind of getting their pregame snack in. If you need to get taped or wrapped or anything like physical therapy related, you'll do that. We'll be able to warm up an hour before the game, which is super nice to kind of get your body flowing and whatnot. And then we'll have like an hour before we hit the court for game time to kind of just be in the locker room, do game day rituals, blast some music, dance around, kind of get in the spirit for game day. And then we'll play Friday night, is when our games usually are, and then also Saturday, kind of late afternoon. So then we'll play our game and afterwards kind of wind down, do post treatment, and then kind of get ready, if it's a Friday, to do it all over again on Saturday. And then if it's Saturday, get ready to have a rest day on Sunday. So that way we can head back to practice on Monday.
And it is a very intense in-season time. I remember watching some of my student athletes during season, and it's an incredible wonder you guys get your schoolwork done, which we'll talk about at some point, because I think that's a live and interesting question. So Tamanang, can you tell us a little bit about the day in the life of a basketball athlete on game day?
Yeah, for sure. So hey everybody, I'm Tom Yang, a senior here, men's basketball team. So like Emma, all our games are all on Friday and Saturday. So a typical day on Friday would be, go to class, have breakfast, and then you usually get a pre-workout in a couple hours in the morning before the game, and then we have shoot around with everybody in the team, just like kind of go through the scouting reports and what to expect when we play the team. And then right after shoot around, we all have team like a pregame team dinner somewhere on Dare Street. Usually it's on Andreas, so that's really nice. And then so then after that, just kind of take a nap, pregame nap, and we got to be in the gym 2.5 hours before game tip off. So we got to make sure you're in the gym by then, and then you do your pre warm up stuff, layup lines, and all that stuff, and get through scouting report again, get taped by the athletic trainer, and then it's game time.
Fantastic. Well, and I'm curious, maybe we'll have, let's say, Meadow go last. I'm curious if we could chat about what happens after the game. I don't really know. I guess it vastly matters whether it's, after a win or a loss. But although I think we're all winners in the game of collegiate athletics, so we'll see. So Meadow, do you want to take us through an average day for women's ice hockey?
Yeah, thanks. So, hi, I'm Meadow. I'm actually a freshman on the Brown women's ice hockey team, so I haven't directly experienced it, but my teammates have walked me through kind of what our typical day would look like on a game day. And normally our games are in the evenings on Fridays and Saturdays. So we do the same thing. We go to school, go to class in the morning, and then we normally have a team meal together because we'll get together in the afternoons or the mornings and kind of talk about what we're going to work on for the game and that kind of thing. And then we go to the rink normally like 3 or 4 hours before because we have a skate that it's an optional skate to go out and kind of warm up, loosen up the hands and get ready to go. And then 2 hours before the game we'll do a team warm up, get everyone buzzing and pumped up. And then it's always, I'm looking forward to it. It should be a good time. And then
Thank you very much. And I was actually intrigued by this. We have thought about the sophomores at Brown, for example, who out of 4 semesters have had 3 of them online. It's been incredibly hard not to fully experience the Brown experience. And I feel for you, Meadow, as a first year, but I also feel joy knowing that I'm pretty sure, I think we're back on campus in the fall and hopefully the season will be roaring next year. All right, so for our remaining participants, I'd love the same question, but when you're out of season, what the average day is like. My nephew is a high school sort of basketball player, and the amount of weightlifting he's done during COVID has been insane. He's got nowhere to put all that strength, but he's got it at least, which is something. So Perry, do you want to take us through women's tennis in the off season?
Absolutely. So, hi, I'm Perry. I'm a nonfiction English concentrator on the tennis team, and so during an off-season day, we have a morning lift. So at 6:30, we'll have a lift. Hopefully, it's not too cold in the morning walk to the weight room, but we get through it. And then we go to breakfast as a team together around 8:30, and then a lot of us have class at 9. So I often have class at 9, and then we usually have 2 or 3 classes from between 9 and 12, 9 and 1. We grab a quick lunch. We go back to practice. We play tennis, and usually for about 2.5 hours. We might have, if it's off season, we might have a practice match against one another to kind of gain strength and, get in the competition mindset when we're not actually, competing in the fall. This is usually a fall season for us. And then we go back to the library and we usually do homework for about an hour together as a team, grab a meal, usually a pretty big meal. We're pretty hungry at that point. Then we go back to the library, study for another 2-3 hours, and then go to sleep.
Well, what I like is, I feel like student athletics kind of manages your day. Like when you have work that you need to do, you'll have a finite amount of time to do it. And so my student athletes always say to folks are 10 times better on time management, 10 times better on sort of discipline, and they get stuff done, I think, a week ahead of time versus some of my students who might have more time free. So I think that's fantastic. And I've been honored to have both Perry and David in my classes in the past in the English department. David, do you want to talk to us about men's basketball in the off season?
Yeah. Hello, everyone. David Mitchell. I'm from Boston, Massachusetts. I'm a junior on the men's basketball team, also a nonfiction student in the English department. And over the past 12 months, it's been like a totally different circumstance than my first 2 years here at Brown, especially in the off season, and given that we haven't had a season at all. I think for the first part of the year, first semester, we weren't even allowed to be in our gym due to the COVID protocols. So a lot of our stuff was majority outside. A lot of weightlifting and a lot of running and training, physical training was outside, and we just did our best to get our basketball skills on our own. Gratefully, the program, we had 2 hoops outside on the far back tennis courts that we were able to play on towards the end of the semester to try to feel that itch, feel that need to get some basketball in. But as the second semester came around and we have been able to be in our gym, we've had a very organized and very structured so far off season. I think there's a select few hours that we have during the week. Right now it's around 12 where we get to go through full team practice with everyone. We get to go through an individual with yourself and a coach. Then you get to weight room sessions. And I think just like you said, having those structured sessions, it's like, it seems like a back to normality, even though it's not the same, but just being able to have some sort of rhythm in your day, rhythm in your schedule, and knowing that you're able to go to one place, go to class, go to another, and knowing that it's getting back to where it used to be is something that's very helpful. But I think overall, the structure's returning. I think these 12 hours have been something that's helped us in this off season. And when we get back to being able to play, it will be extremely beneficial that we had this time.
I think that's a nice subject and one we might touch upon throughout our time, which is how do you make lemonade out of lemons, and how do you find yourself a better teammate, a better player, a better student after all the COVID. So Luke, tell us about the men's lacrosse team, what that average day is like off season.
Yeah, sure. So my name's Luke Gatos. I'm a junior on the men's lacrosse team from Ridgefield, Connecticut. So an average day is very similar to Perry's average day of class in the morning, lacrosse in the afternoon, and studying and homework in the night. So I guess on an average day, I'll probably have 2 classes anywhere from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. So I'll go to a dining hall around 8:30 in the morning, get breakfast, chat with friends, a great opportunity to build relationships with teammates and also develop new friendships with other Brown students. And after I go to my 2 classes, walking around campus, I'll probably eat lunch after, say, my 12 p.m. class. Dining hall, same routine. Go to whatever dining hall is closest. And then after I eat lunch, probably around 1:30, I'll head up to the locker room. And this will be probably around 1 hour until our 3 p.m. practice meeting when, mandatory lacrosse activity starts. So this little bit of time allows me to rehab my body in the training room, get extra work on the field, or watch film with coaches. So any work that I need to improve on personally, that time is there for me to, get up there early and do whatever I need to do. At 3 p.m., we'll have a team meeting in our locker room where we watch film, go over our goals for that day, and we'll go out to the practice field for about an hour, 2 hours. And then on some days after practice, we'll go into the weight room. This is more common, obviously, off season than in season. Get a lift in, and then after practice or lift, return to the locker room, shower, get dressed, go back to the dining hall for a big dinner, notoriously filling up as many tables as possible in the dining hall. And after dinner, we'll go to the library, get all the homework and studying we need to do, usually sit in tables together, still building that relationship, still building those connections of a team, and hopefully go to bed at a reasonable hour.
Well, and I appreciate that note about bedtime. I have 2 kids who are very young and not, really it's sort of even, out of elementary school yet. But I always tell them that sports, gives you a sense of purpose. It structures your day. And I also think, being tired enough and being hungry enough because you've kind of earned it, I think is a beautiful thing for just a life sort of strategy of regularizing your schedule. So that's fantastic. Thank you all. And Karen, do you want to do our next question for the contestants?
Yeah, I would be happy to take over. Thanks, John. Thanks for the introduction earlier. As John mentioned, my name is Karen Haberstroh, and I am an engineering faculty member at Brown. And I was also a swimmer at Brown. I graduated in '95. And I still work with both the women's swim and dive team and also the women's water polo team. So I'm very involved in athletics still. And it's nice to hear all of your stories about what it's like to be a student athlete a typical day, because it very much resonates with my own memories. So interesting to me that it you know, to a certain extent, every sport has its similarities and very similar kind of day in the life of a Brown student athlete, which it's fun to hear and reminisce. I'm actually curious to hear a little bit about the academic side of your experience, a little more about the academic side of your experience at Brown. So I'm wondering, and I have a sense already just based on your own introductions of yourselves, but can you guys raise your hands if you have already declared your, what we call a concentration, but it's basically like a major at Brown. So if you've declared your major, the panelists, can you guys raise your hands? Yeah, and that's what I thought, right? So everyone, pretty much everyone except, well, everyone except Meadow has. The way that Brown works is that students declare their concentration at the end of their sophomore year. And actually it just happened, I think about a week ago, right? It was very recently for sophomores. So my question is, and I'll phrase the question first, and then maybe just in the sake of time, I'm just going to call on a couple of you. I'm wondering if you can tell us, you already mentioned, many of you, your concentration, but I'm wondering if you can tell us a little bit about how that might tie into what you think, and this is maybe going to change, but what you think you'll be doing, say 5-10 years from now. And importantly, what I'm really curious to hear is what are the qualities that you think athletics have given you as a student athlete, that you feel will really help and translate into both your academic experience and being successful academically at Brown, but also hopefully translate into whatever it is you choose to do 5 or 10 years from now after Brown. So I can think of some qualities for me as a student athlete that have definitely carried through, but I'm really curious to hear what your perspective has been and what sorts of things you're already identifying as kind of skills that you've gained through athletics that are going to help you in academics. So how about we'll start with, let's start with Emma. I'm going to just ask a couple of you guys to answer the question, and then just so we have time for at least one more question before we finish.
Yeah, so my concentration is American Studies, which honestly, when people ask me to describe it, I can't even find the words to describe it because it's so interdisciplinary. I feel like I touch on everything. But my hope in 5 to 10-ish years is to be working in kind of the nonprofit sector. I'm kind of giving back to communities. I think that's what I've really learned from Brown, just as a community, and the atmosphere here is everyone is super helpful, wants everyone to succeed, and also wants to give back to communities that either you're a part of or that you have the opportunity to help out. And then just being a student athlete, I've learned so much time management. I can multitask super well with sports, practice, lift times, and then also trying to get all my schoolwork done in addition to being in different clubs at Brown. Time management has been huge. And then also being on a team sport here at Brown, I've learned how to collaborate really well and be a team member. So as I work, hopefully in the nonprofit world, I'm sure I'll be on teams, working with clients, and being a student athlete has definitely taught me how to go about difficult situations and how to make sure everyone's on board for a common goal. So yeah.
Great, Emma, that's a really great perspective. And yeah, I mean, if I had to think back to my time at Brown and some of the skills I learned, I think number one, well, skills I learned as a student athlete specifically, number one would be time management. You get really, really good at managing your time and being efficient with the time that you have. So I would completely agree. Tamanang, I'm wondering if you want to share your perspective on the same question?
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I'm a BO Econ major, or that's my concentration. But I do also want to play professionally, basketball professionally. But after that, I'm not 100% sure what I want to do yet. But I do want to, give back to my community, because growing up, I was an inner city kid, and just growing up, going to the Ivy League, it's just opened up a lot of doors for me, and I've been able to meet a lot of new people. So I definitely want to just be able to, come back to my community and kind of give back to the people who helped me along the way. And in light of that, I've learned the biggest, let's see, I think being a student athlete, I probably learned persistency the most. Just going through adversity, kind of like what Emma said, whether it's, off the court or on the court with teammates, in a game, if you lose, how do you bounce back from that? Missing a lot of shots, how do you bounce back from that? So I feel like that's the biggest thing I've kind of taken away being a basketball player here at Brown, and definitely going to use that to, my advantage in my career. And, when things kind of get rough, just staying with it and, pushing through that adversity. So.
Yeah, that's a great comment. I know, John, you kind of started out with a little bit of a joke about winning games, right? But we don't always win as student athletes, and actually, I think we learn a lot from those failures, and failures maybe in quotes, right? Because I actually see a lot of successes come out of what you might think are failures. And I'm in a STEM field, I'm in engineering. A lot of what we do in labs, for example, 90% of what we do might not work, but it's that 10%. When you have enough resilience and grit to kind of keep going and pushing forward, you're gonna succeed. So I totally agree, and that's a great thing to take with you post Brown. How about one more, just in the sake of time? Perry, do you want to share your perspective as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, I think that kind of going off of what my other student athletes have said, I think that persistence is definitely that's one part of it. But I think for me, discipline is also another big part of it. Just learning to like both structure my day academically and athletically, and just having those two things kind of set in stone for me every day has been really helpful. But I kind of as I look to evolve from a competitive athlete to to someone in the real world, whatever that may be, I do definitely take I take that discipline with me, and so I think that's something that has been really special for me at Brown and beyond.
Great. Yeah. Thank you so much. And I mean, just listening to you guys, I can tell already that you're going to be successful beyond Brown based on the things that you're sharing and the things that you're learning. So congratulations to all of you guys. So John, I think we might have time for at least one more question, probably one more before we switch over to see if there are any questions from the folks who are listening.
Absolutely. And this is also being recorded too. I suspect it might in future times be available on the Annenberg Institute website. So hello to future watchers if you're there. And I also want to affirm, we're actually very thrilled to have Maxine O'Faley here, who's also a former Brown student athlete. She's now a project coordinator at Brown University here at the Annenberg Institute, the hosts of our event. And I didn't know if Maxine wanted to ring in on her experiences. I noticed she was a concentrator in BEO, which is, as Tom Henning said, business, economics, entrepreneurship, and organizational studies. So I think it's just nice to know that, not only is there the time of student athletics, but there's the time after graduation and the way that it plays into the time after. So Maxine, I wondered, do you want to ring in about, what your time was like as a student athlete at Brown and how it's translated to your work after Brown?
Oh, hi. Sorry, can you hear me?
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, of course. I'm very glad to be here, and I was excited to, be here and as an attendee just to hear, everyone's experiences. I graduated in 2018 as a BEO concentrator, which I guess has now changed a little bit, which is cool to hear. But I think part of my experience at Brown being a student
We might have lost you there for a second, Maxine. If you want to unmute, it might come back. Let's see.
Okay, I think I'm back.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Okay, sorry about that.
No, you did great.
I think part of my experience as a student athlete, on the field and in the classroom is why I, came back to work at the Annenberg Institute. I learned a lot about myself, and I think in the classroom, and I think speaking to the last question a little bit, kind of the things you take from being a student athlete. I think being a student athlete at Brown is, one of the hardest things I've done in life, and it's allowed me to learn about myself as a young professional, and a person transitioning from being a student to being someone in the workplace, and being able to take those intangible skills that you learn being a part of a team, but also having to better yourself on the court, or I guess for me on the track field. Really, I think those intangible things really carry over a lot to how a person moves through the workplace, and being ambitious and looking for different job opportunities and things like that. So I think just all of those hard to describe soft skills are what I really took with me from being a student athlete.
That's a really nice way to put it, the hard to describe soft skills. I think
Yeah.
there's a lot of change that occurs between, say the transition from high school to college. But I also think, and I would say this to my students, maybe the biggest transition, at least I felt I experienced in life, was between college and what's after. That,
Mhm.
regardless of, whatever schooling somebody does, the minute they move to that workplace, sort of, 8 to 10 hour days and doing, so much differently than you used to do it. It's a big change. So I think, again, the autonomy of student athletics helps kind of prepare you for that, if that makes sense. Thank you very much, Maxine. And if it's okay with you, we'll call on you also for our next question, the last one before we turn it over to the Q&A.
Absolutely.
And this is kind of, connecting with that last point about how transitions can be hard, but student athletics kind of helps prepare you for it. So, Perry and I were talking, and she said that college is often seen as kind of a place of opportunity in different facets of our lives. And Tom and I mentioned this too, that there's a lot of opportunities that come with being in the college world, and it could be academic, athletic, or social. We wondered if college gave you an opportunity to change your identity, and that could be academically or athletically. How did college sort of change you? So, as with Karen, I'll just sort of call on a couple folks if that's okay, just to sort of spread the wealth before we do Q&A. But I wondered, maybe Luke, do you want to take it off first? How did college change you so far?
Yeah, sure. So in, the academic sense, I think coming into Brown, I had a good idea of what I really was interested in studying, kind of economics and political science, which I'm doing. But I was also, given this opportunity to join new clubs that I was really interested in, where I may not have time to take full classes or coursework in this material, but I could join a club. So over the past couple of years, I've really had a passion grow for screenwriting and movie making. So I was able to join the Brown Screenwriting Club last spring after my lacrosse season was canceled due to the amount of new found time I had, and this was awesome. I was able to meet so many new people, really get out of my comfort zone and find a niche spot that I really enjoyed in an academic sense. Athletically, when I came into Brown, I think I really rediscovered my love for the sport. In high school, you're playing all the time, but Brown, you're kind of back at the bottom of the totem pole as a freshman, and you really have to work your way up. And I loved that opportunity, and it made me, redefine my work ethic and my commitment to the game. And just shortly socially, coming to Brown definitely made me more outgoing. Just the ability to meet so many new people, such a diverse student body that Brown has. I definitely found myself reaching out, making more connections, making more friends than I ever had before.
That's a nice parallel to draw, that I think even if a person feels like, within their sport, sort of a biggish fish in a small pond in high school, it's a big adjustment to come to college where everybody on your athletic team was the biggest fish in the pond of their high school, and you have to try for playing time. And that's the same thing one feels when one goes to college, or to take Maxine's point, when you transition to a job after school, because it's a totally new environment. And I say to my students, I've sort of moved 7 times in my life to start at a new place with not knowing anybody, and it takes a lot of work to really acclimate to a new situation in life. And I think athletically, academically, socially, all those happen at college. So I'm curious, Perry, and I'll echo what Soul Jane kindly said in the chat. If anybody has any questions, we're thrilled to transition to any Q&A. Feel free to post a question either in the chat or to just raise your hand. Otherwise, I think we'll keep going through the questions we have, because I have a billion questions for all of you. I'm wildly curious about these student athlete experience. So Perry, this was your question. And I think, surely in your heart of hearts, you must have envisioned an answer for yourself. How did it change you coming to college?
Yeah, for sure. I feel like especially passionate about this question because coming into college, I was basically I was a student and an athlete, but I never really had the chance to, I don't know, interact with people socially off the court or, outside of school. So I just really had the opportunity. I ended up meeting my best friends my first year, my freshman year, and it was just something that was really special and made my college experience like that much richer, honestly. And just to be able to connect with people that weren't athletes. And so, to just meet this diverse like group of people that like from so many different backgrounds that I never would have, been able to meet if I had just, stayed like in the tennis world or just stayed, like within my school world. And yeah, and it's just like, that was a really great experience. And then academically, I feel like my identity has changed a million times at Brown academically, but I just have really, I don't know, I've really had the chance to explore so many different passions. And I feel like I've been able to, as I've matured athletically, I've also been able to use my athletic experience to kind of inform my academic experience. And so I've done a lot of, Professor Reddy knows, he's my advisor, but I've done a lot of writing about the transition from a competitive athlete to the world beyond, and all of the emotions that come with that. But it's just been really beautiful how Brown has given me that platform to be able to write about that.
Well, and this is an interesting question that if we have time, I'd love to delve into. Meadows maybe not dreaming of this yet as a first year, but Perry as a senior and a senior thesis writer with me, her thesis is a lot about how do you transition from the sport that you've spent your life playing, that in some ways has defined a lot of your life up to this point. I think about my nephew, playing in traveling teams and AAU teams, and so much of your existence in high school is channeling to your sport. Then you get to Division I athletics, and then what comes after? In Perry's case, you're writing an incredible thesis about sort of trying to transition into sports, sort of media or journalism after, and what that takes and how you can take some lessons from that. And actually, David, that brings up yourself, who, I know you're thinking of a senior thesis along these lines too. And I'm curious, as a junior, turning towards senior year, how has college changed you and even maybe aspirations after?
I just say that college has been a tremendous time of growth, and just, we already talked about opportunity, but just the ability to sort of hone in on the things that I've always imagined and thought of leading up to this point, and getting that opportunity to truly engage in them. I always knew that I wanted, like Perry, some sort of sports journalism after my athletic career is over, and like being at Brown has given me the opportunity to sort of invest in that and meet new people and and build relationships with those who can help me get to that spot. I think like my senior thesis that hopefully I get to do will be something that will be along those lines as well. And I think just during this time, it's something that I've been able to learn about myself and learn how willing I am to really do the things I'm passionate about, and then just see what other things I'm interested in and how willing I am to participate in those, even if it's not a direct correlation to what I want to do later on.
And it's true that everything that you do, whether it's on the field or the court, or whether it's in your classroom, changes you and makes you into the place that you're eventually going to get to. And I wanted to affirm, we have an open curriculum at Brown, which means that there's no core requirements for your first years like there are at many colleges. But I always say and so you find your own set of core courses that interest you, you find your own concentration or major. And I say to my advisees that sort of, life is an open curriculum. You do choose which sport, if any sport that you want to pursue. You choose like what your major or your college choice or your, life choice might be. And you certainly choose your profession after school. And so it's interesting to think about. You have an infinite number of choices. How do you pare them down? How do you find what matters to you? So we're going to make sure to include Maxine on our last answer. And I got a nice sort of question here from Soul Jane in the chat. Do you want to, Karen, handle that next round of questions?
Yeah, let's take the question in the chat. We have some other questions which we can definitely ask, but let's do the one in the chat, which came from one of the students watching. I would again encourage any other students or families that are watching, if you want to ask some questions, we have a great group of student athletes here that are very happy to answer your questions, so take advantage of that. But here's the question that has been placed in the chat. What advice do you have for a current student athlete looking to continue their sports journey as they prepare for college? So advice that you would have liked to have received when you were in high school. That's a great question. So what do you wish you knew when you were in high school that would have helped better prepare you for the experience that you're in right now? And I don't know if anyone in particular, I don't want to put anyone on the spot since this isn't something you were necessarily prepared for, but does anyone want to address that question? Yeah, David, go ahead. Thank you.
Yeah, I think one of the main things that I wanted to hear, not that I wanted to hear, but more so I needed to hear that it's not going to be easy. Like we said in high school, we're all big fish in our pond, and when we get to Brown or we get to Division I or any college level, you're back not at the bottom of the totem pole, but that you're not the man, you're not the main star, and it's just you got to be willing to work, and you got to be willing to be passionate. So I think the main thing is just be ready because it's not going to be easy. And if it's something that you truly want to do and continuing your athletic journey, you got to be willing to make those sacrifices. I don't think I imagined or envisioned the sacrifices that I would have to make to be a Division I athlete. But I mean, it's more than willing. The experience is more than enjoyable and makes it worth it in the end.
Yeah, that's a really, really great point. And interestingly, I was just talking probably 2 days ago to a first-year student at Brown who is an athlete. And since I had been an athlete at Brown, just wanted to get my perspective on how I balanced it and other advice that I might have. And that was actually probably the key thing that I spoke to them about as well, was that I think I knew it was going to be difficult. I don't think I knew how difficult it was going to be. And that's not to say that I wouldn't do it again in a heartbeat. I absolutely would. I learned so much. I had such a great experience, both academically and swimming. But it's hard. It's hard to balance the two. And you come in with some skills that will help you do that. You get better at some skills along the way. But it is something you're going to have to continue to work at to be successful. But absolutely worth it, as you said, David. So that's great perspective. Anyone else want to share their thoughts on that question? Yeah, Emma, go ahead.
Sorry, Luke, I'm jumping in ahead of you. I would say, I think a big piece of advice that I would have liked to hear, and I'm glad it worked out the way that it did, is when you're looking to extend your sports experience into college, is you definitely want to look at the whole picture. You don't want to just look at sports and you don't want to just look at athletics, but you want to look at the balance between the two. So like my mom always said, like, if you were to get injured day one of stepping onto the court, like, would you still be happy at the school that you picked? And I think that's a really good way to look at it. To make sure that like you are going not just for your sports career, but also just like where you want to be in general for school. And I honestly could not be more thankful for ending up at Brown, because I absolutely love my sports life here, and I absolutely love my academic life here and my social life here. So make sure you're thinking about all the kind of pieces that would make up your life outside of just being a student athlete.
That's an excellent, excellent point. Yeah. And I mean, to be honest, I say that same thing to people that are in undergrad considering jobs or considering graduate school or whatever else, right? If that person who you're looking at as your advisor is all of a sudden, if they leave that school, are you still going to be happy at that school? So yeah, you have to make sure that the big picture of whatever situation you're in is the right fit. And that includes not just athletics, but also your academic experience, and making sure that, in terms of the majors you're thinking of and just the culture at the university, that it's going to be a place that feels like home. That's a really excellent point. We do have one more question. I know we only have a couple minutes left, but there is one more question in the chat, which maybe we can answer just to make sure the student questions get answered. John, do you want me to just take it, or do you want to take it?
Oh, feel free to take it if you like. And I wondered, Maxine, as an alum, I'd be curious about her thoughts on this, and also Meadow as somebody who's getting used to all of this. But go ahead, Karen, that sounds great.
Yeah. Okay. So the last question that we have is, first of all, someone said, thank you so much for sharing all of your experiences, and your lives sound quite busy, which I'm sure they are, but also I think very fruitful and enjoyable as well. The question was, can you share about how you practice self-care? So what do you do during your downtime, which is really important? And yes, I think Meadow, Maxine, if you guys want to contribute to the response to this question as well, I think that would be great, given that you're kind of on opposite ends of the spectrum here.
Yeah, I can jump in. I think like being a freshman and it being such an unprecedented year, a lot of people challenge you with the question of, do you feel like you missed out? Or they'll always throw things in about their year, and it just makes you kind of puts you in a bad sense of, oh, like I wish we had that and that kind of thing. But I think when you really sit down and just have some time with yourself to reflect and just be grateful that I have the opportunity to be here. Like we've been able to do a lot of things thanks to Brown and them being so good with looking out for our health and safety. And it just like I'm just happy to be here. And I think any opportunity we've had to meet the girls has been great. And a lot of people say that like your freshman year is the hardest year, and like oh, you'll just once you get through freshman year, you'll be good. But I think like it being COVID and everything, like we had the opportunity to meet our teammates and everything on Zoom. We really got to know them on there, and it takes away a bit of that anxiety that you normally have coming into a new place. And we've had time with it not being a regular schedule season to really get to know the campus and to get to know other people, and like all of the seniors and juniors touched on, get involved in different things that Brown has to offer, different activities and groups. And yeah, so I've been able to do that, and I'm really enjoying it. I think it's good to reflect and to not get caught up in what you don't have, but to focus on what you do. So yeah, it's been a great freshman experience.
That's great. It's so good to hear. And I agree. I think Brown has done a really amazing job just to keep everyone safe, but also to let everyone kind of experience what's so special about being a Brown student generally, but also a Brown student athlete specifically. Maxine, I'm wondering if you have anything that you want to just quickly add specifically around your experience at Brown, and maybe how that's helped you transition beyond Brown in terms of self-care and things that you like to do in your downtime.
Yeah, I think having a little more, perspective and time being as a postgraduate now working at Brown, but just working in general, I think self-care wasn't something that I had spent much time on or thought a lot about like in high school. And I think just at Brown, being able to recognize the importance of self-care is like the first step, and it's a really important thing to be able to just have it front of mind, because you can't operate the same way you did as a high schooler, being a Division I student athlete, as much as you'd like to think you can. So I know things that I think I did as a student athlete, just making sure I was building relationships, outside of my team, as big as my team, was to me, as important as it was to me, but making sure I had like a good balance outside of my team environment. But also I think as a young professional, some things that I took away from my experience in terms of self-care, well, now I think I get to, I'm not competing anymore, but still, I was a thrower at Brown, but still getting out on the track and, exercising and lifting in ways that like maybe I would as a student athlete, being able to take those things with me. I think is something that I've valued a lot as someone who now is no longer a student athlete, but still gets to bring that love of what I do with me later in my life.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great perspective. And I know same for me with swimming. It's been so nice so many years later to still be able to participate in swimming just in a different way. And now just for the enjoyment and love of the sport, and definitely part of my sort of self-care routine. So thank you so much. In the spirit of just time, and especially being respectful of the great student athletes who have given up some of their day to be with us, I know that classes will start at 11, and some of you may have classes to go to, so I want to be mindful of your time. I just want to personally thank all of you for being so open and honest and sharing your experiences. It was helpful for me, and I'm sure it was helpful for the students that are listening as well. So thank you so much. John, I don't know if you want to say anything in closing as well.
Absolutely. First of all, thank you very, very much to our panelists and all our attendees and all the folks who so kindly arranged this through Brown's, Annenberg Institute. I had one last parting question from one of our attendees, and thank you so much for this question. Just as a wrap up, the attendee wondered whether anybody on the panel has suffered any injuries and wondered how they bounced back from it. And that is a really, huge question, both for high school and college athletes. Has anyone either gone through that? Maybe one respondent real briefly, and then we'll sign off. Or do you know anybody on your team who has gone through it, and how did they get through that? See, these folks are here today, so maybe they're not injured. Maybe they're not nursing it. But I've actually witnessed multiple of my athletes go through everything from ACL tears to concussions and things like that. And I think it harkens back to a little bit of what Meadow said, is that I think there's an incredibly supportive atmosphere at Brown, from the coaches to the trainers to the athletic department to, I like to hope, the faculty. We get some notes from deans of student life telling us if our student has been injured, and to try to help them get extra time and dispensation from their other faculty members. And I know the training staff is incredibly careful about making sure that people get the recovery time and the resources that they need. They don't come back too early. And I just kind of want to affirm that, maybe most of all, is at the end of the day, athletics is an incredible part of your life. It's a wonderful complement to academics. I think all of us feel deeply that those two things, academics and athletics, are an incredibly good pairing, both for success at high school and success at college and success at the life beyond college. So there's something really powerful about the self-discipline you learn in athletics, the teamwork, the humility, being part of a team and going for a common goal. It's incredibly useful whether you go into business or communications or nonprofit work. The many things that people have mentioned here today, film work, all of that is a team sport, and it's actually exciting to think every single thing you do in high school and college pays dividends after college. So thank you so much for joining us, everyone. We're so thrilled, and I'm thrilled too that some of our participants will see me back here at 12 p.m. for another go round of this, and we'll delve into new questions and we'll revisit some old favorites. So thank you so much for all the attendees for attending, and our friend Sol Jane at the Annenberg Institute also reminds folks to complete the survey if they can when the session ends. Sol Jane, is there anything you want to mention?
Just a huge thank you to the athletics department, our student athletes, and the university, and to our attendees. When the session is over, you will get a survey on your screen. Two questions, 5 seconds. We love your feedback, and we hope to see you at Brown face-to-face, hopefully in the very near future. So thank you, everyone. And we'll see you all back later today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Take care. Stay well. Thank you.